Welcome in, college football fans, and welcome back to the First and Long College Football Show. I am your co-host, Marcus. There's your other co-host, Mason. We are today getting together to talk about our initial thoughts for all the Week 2 matchups. We haven't even finished Week 1. We're on to next week. We got LSU, USC playing right now, so we'll kind of keep an eye on that as we're recording here. Thank you all so much for joining us. And as I said, what we're going to do today is go through our initial thoughts on all these games, kind of some of our, what are some of kind of the breaking points for each team for winning these games, and what are these teams going to need to improve on from Week 1. Mason, how are you today? We had a lot of fun in Week 1. It's right back to the grindstone. Week 2, here we go.
Yep. Week 1 is over. It's behind us. We can throw it into the past and forget about it, um, and use it for the future, right? To build on the future, and that's what we're doing today. Looking at what Week 1 gave us, right? Which isn't a ton. We don't have a ton to go off of yet. And then we're gonna look at the bigger matchups for Week 2. Give you kind of our initial thoughts on what it looks like, and then Tuesday night we're gonna be coming back with another live show. I'm assuming it may not be live. We don't know yet, but we'll be doing our full previews of all of these games on Tuesday again. So please come back and see our more produced or more production based show on Tuesday night. And throughout the week we'll be releasing those, and then we'll be back to our betting show on Thursday and live reaction on Saturday night. So we are in the grind of the season now, and I'm super pumped up. We don't have to go out and create content; it's here for us, and we just got to react to it and preview it. It's a fun time for us and fun time for football fans. So glad to have you with us.
Yeah, guys, it was a really fun off season. If you guys haven't checked it out, go check out all our deep dive breakdowns. It's not too late to do that. And a lot of these teams that we're going to talk about today, we've already done a full deep dive, and so we're going to be kind of referencing some of our notes and things that we learned in the off season about these teams today. And this is where all that knowledge, comes into effect. Mason and I, not to toot our own horns, but we had one hell of a Week 1 as far as betting on the games, and it really felt like we had a really good grasp on what was going on, and that was fully due to the fact that we spent a lot of time with you guys on the First and Long College Football Show, just turning over every leaf and stick there on the roster and figuring out what's what and who's who, and it's harder than ever to do that in an age of the transfer portal. So we'll do our best to try to make sense of some of these matchups today. We're going to talk Texas at Michigan. We're going to talk Arkansas at Oklahoma State. Arkansas at Oklahoma State, Colorado at Nebraska, and Tennessee versus NC State, because that is a neutral site game there in Charlotte. So we'll finish up the show today talking about that. Guys, if you're watching this live, I'll say it. I'm going to repeat several things throughout the show. Don't get mad at me. As we do these videos, we're going to be cutting these videos up and releasing them. So I might say some repetitive stuff like, please subscribe or please come hang out, or just understand what I'm doing. I'm talking to another video while we're doing this. It's kind of weird how we do that, but we want you guys to be part of our system and our process that we've got going on here. We want your input. So put it in the comment section, please, and we'll read it on the show in between these breakdowns. And we want to hear from you guys. There's some really smart fans out there. We're just fans just like you, so we want to hear from you. Mason, let's go into the Texas at Michigan. Texas is favored by 6.5. The over/under is set at 44.5 early in the week here. Texas is coming off a really good season, and I'm not going to talk too much about their Week 1 game. I mean, it wasn't, I would say the highlight of the Week 1 game for Texas was the fact that Arch Manning was able to get out there and play, right? And I don't anticipate this game being one that Arch Manning gets out there. I mean, I guess you never know, but I don't foresee that being a storyline here today, so I'll kind of exclude the Week 1 game because it really, there wasn't much to gather from it, I don't think. But everybody knows Texas has loaded at the wide receiver room. Quinn Ewers is back again. You've got Arch Manning backing him up. God forbid something happens. The offensive line is pretty good, but they're going to be really tested in this matchup, Mason, because Michigan has one of the best defensive lines in the country, especially on the interior with Mason Graham So I'm sure that'll be something that we kind of talk about today and something that's been in my head. But this game seems like a clash of two very, very different styles of football. You've got the modern look in Texas, really good wide receiver room. I'd argue probably the best wide receiver room in the country against Michigan, who is more of a defensive based team, right? Their strength lies in the defense and really kind of all levels of the defense, in my opinion, as I was kind of rehashing their roster and watching their Fresno State game from last week. So I think that I think that a few things are kind of going on in my head. The wide receivers at Texas, is it just too much? That's kind of my thing. Is this going to be too much for this Michigan secondary that I think is really, really good? But Golden, Bond, Wingo, Jonte Cook, Silas Bolden. I mean, the list just goes on and on. I'm not even naming everyone in that wide receiver room. I've seen it in college football. I've seen it happen to Georgia. I've seen it happen to the Georgia Bulldogs. When you've got that much of wealth of talent in a room like the wide receiver room, sometimes that can just be a game breaker, dude. And if Texas can protect Quinn Ewers, which they didn't do a fantastic job of last year, if they can protect him from this really, really good Michigan defense, you can only cover these wide receivers so long. That's just it is what it is. They're really, really, really good. So I think that is a big X factor in this game. How does Michigan deter the activity on the Texas offense? You got to kind of look at it from a couple of different angles here. What's your thoughts on this game? Is Michigan gonna have enough firepower? That's something that a lot of people have talked about. What are they going to have on offense? Right, a lot of guys gone. What is this offense going to look like against a Texas defense that I don't feel like is that great? Right. What are your thoughts on this one?
Well, first of all, I look at that over under at 44.5, and I think that's extremely low. Not saying that I have a lean on the over or anything like that, but that's, I mean, just it is what it is. That's a low number, right? It may be right. I'm really not sure. We'll have to kind of break this down a little bit further, but that was the first thing that I looked at when I pulled up these totals here. Especially with Texas and the firepower that they have, I think it's a testament to the Michigan defense. And y'all, this is a game that we had circled long ago. And I looked at this game and thought, hey, this is one that Michigan could get and would be a huge feather in their cap when you look at the college football playoff and their path to the playoff. I think that this is a kind of a keystone game for Michigan where they really need to win it more than probably Texas does. Texas still has a few games that they could win in the SEC and get in. Michigan they could win the Big Ten and get in as well. But I think you see my point here where I feel like Michigan is going to need this game because they probably don't match up as well against an Oregon or Ohio State as they have in the past. And this could be a game that they win and go 10-2 or something like that, and get in, without going to the Big Ten championship. So really important for both teams, but maybe Michigan more so. I think that this Michigan defense showed us a lot in week one. The offense sputtered, right? We didn't know what we were going to get at quarterback. Alex Orji does not play a ton, had 2 pass attempts in this week 1 game. Jack Tuttle's hurt, so Davis Warren was kind of your go-to guy at quarterback. I thought he played pretty well. I didn't see any glaring mistakes or anything like that. But this is an offense that probably doesn't have the camaraderie, the chemistry. They haven't gelled quite yet, and I think that could be a little bit of a concern for me when you're facing this Texas defense, which I do think is pretty good. I really liked what I saw out of Mullings, the running back. You kind of pair him with Donovan Edwards, and now all of a sudden you've got a pretty good 1-2 punch like you had last year with Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards. I think that Mullings could be your bell cow back, and that's not a surprise for us. We talked about Mullings in our breakdown, thought that he had a really good chance to produce in this offense, and he did. 92 yards this past week. for him against Fresno State. That was pretty impressive on 11 carries, and Donovan Edwards also 11 carries, just 27 yards. So I'm looking at Bowlings, and I'm wondering if he doesn't get more involved. Then Colston Loveland was your bell cow receiver there, 8 receptions, 87 yards, and a touchdown. That's not a big surprise. Michigan
Yeah,
once
he's
again
a
has a
cheat
really
code, dude.
good. He's pretty broken.
Yeah.
Michigan once again has a really good tight end, and that's not a surprise for us. But I want to see the quarterback get a little bit more involved, get it to a few more guys. Samaj Morgan supposed to be the breakout wide receiver. He only had 2 receptions for 8 yards. Tyler Morris had 3 receptions, 15 yards. Just not a ton of production in the passing game outside of dropping it off to Colston Loveland. And I'm here to tell you that Texas's linebackers are going to match up much better than Fresno State would against Colston Loveland. A lot more athletic linebackers with guys like Anthony Hill, at linebacker for Texas. I think that maybe you kind of match him up against Colston Loveland and try to take him out of the game as much as possible, because Michigan didn't have much outside of that. Now, when we broke this game down a few weeks ago, I guess it was, I picked Michigan to win this game, and the reason being is because of their running game. I think that they're going to be pretty good on the offensive line. I didn't see any glaring mistakes. It wasn't a perfect game against Fresno State or anything like that. Fresno State's got a pretty good team, first of all, but I expected them to block a little bit better against that defense, and probably left a little bit to be desired in that game. But going to Texas, on the Texas side of things, I don't necessarily love their defensive front, and we didn't see them get tested by Colorado State. So I don't know if we have any answers. This game's going to give us some answers on the front, but to me, if Michigan wants to win this game, they're going to have to run the football. Maybe you get Alex Orji a little bit more involved in this one, and do some RPO type stuff. Yeah, and try not to be too one dimensional with it. You bring Davis Warren in for some passes, and but to me, if Michigan wants to win this game, they got to make it physical. They don't want to get into a shootout, right? Make it physical up front, and try to run the dang ball. That's, to me, that's how Michigan can get it done. Um, I'll leave my Texas side of side of how they can win to after your point, but what are your thoughts on this game? What's Michigan's key to victory to you?
Well, honestly, my key to victory for Michigan is on the defensive side of the ball, because that's where the strength is for this team. So if they're going to
Mm-hmm.
win this football game, they're going to have to do it on the defensive side of the ball. I don't see anything change in week 2 for Michigan's offense really a whole lot. I mean, um, it is what it is, and guys are going to get better as the season goes along here. But this defense is good enough to keep you in any game that you play in. And here's my question: will Michigan be able to rush 3 or 4 and sit back in coverage? Because we've talked about Texas. We just put a video out a couple weeks ago talking about this running back room. It leaves a little bit to be desired. I mean, I saw Jaden Blue play in that week 1 game. That's good stuff. But you're kind of you've got him, and then Jarrett Gibson. You're kind of hoping that he's going to be able to step up. And this is a big boy defense you're about to be running against here. And I'm just a little worried, especially after C.J. Baxter goes down with the season-ending injury. Obviously, is the reason I reference this. So if Michigan can bring 3 or 4 and sit back in coverage and make Texas one-dimensional, I do think the secondary is good enough to get a couple of turnovers and turn this, just steal a couple of possessions, right? Um, it's if Texas can't establish the run, Michigan's going to be able to sit back, and it's going to be hell. I mean, this secondary led by Will Johnson is a pretty good one. I mean, yeah, the safety Rod Moore kind of muddied the picture up a little bit whenever he got hurt, but I mean, this is one of the best and deepest pass defending groups in America. So, um, Texas is going to be tested. They have not seen a defense like this really in a long, long time. I mean, Texas is an SEC team. They haven't played an SEC schedule yet. A lot of the statistics and things that we saw from this team were while they played in the Big 12 last year against a lot of inferior opponents. Michigan is a good enough defense that if you're not minding your P's and Q's, they're going to make you pay for it. And I'm interested to see. I'm interested to see how Quinn Ewers handles it, man, because there's going to be some adversity in this game. I don't think Texas is going to be able to establish the run in this game, and therefore, I think there's going to be a lot of trouble for this offense because if you can't establish the run, Mason, you're going to find yourself in 3rd and long against this Michigan defense. It's going to happen a lot. So how can you convert those 3rd downs? Well, the more yardage you got to go, the less percentage you got to make that 3rd down, and that's kind of the key to victory, I think, for Michigan is get this Texas offense in 3rd and long, 3rd and obvious, right, and do what you do, play defense. And on the offensive side of the ball, I think it's super simple for Michigan. You got to run the football. You did not utilize your running back, I don't feel like, very well in that opening game there. Donovan Edwards did not. He had like no carries going pretty deep into that game, like 1 carry, 2, 3 carries. Just what are we doing? Feed that man. I don't understand why you're not feeding that guy unless he's secretly not healthy or something. I have no idea. I have no reason to believe that. So very simple on offense. You got to establish the run. Don't turn it over. Right? You can't give Texas any extra possessions because that's the last thing this offense needs. You give them extra chances, they're gonna burn you. So those are kind of my keys to victory for Michigan. What about Texas on the Texas side of it? Let's talk about some of their keys to victory. What you got?
Yeah, I mean, looking at Texas, like you said, I don't know that Texas goes into this game thinking we got to establish the run. I know you want to. I just don't know that should be your strategy. Get some short yardage passes, right? Get some jet sweeps and some get some of these wide receivers involved on the perimeters. If you want to try to run directly at this defensive front, I don't think it's a great idea. Even though you've got a really good offensive line, I do think that Texas has the best offensive line we've seen in years for them, and one of the best in the SEC. I do think that you put some trust into them, but you're going to have to limit the pass rush by Michigan, which is a tough task. They looked really good. They were flying all around the football this past week against Fresno State. I don't think there's much of a drop off for Michigan's defense. So, but if Texas wants to win this game, I think that they are going to have to win it in the air. That to me, if they want to go in and run the football, it's not going to work, right? So the next thing that you can do is pass the ball, and in order for that to happen, got to have some run or some pass protection. And then these receivers are going to get open. You got to make sure you make the right play. You can only hold up for so long on the defensive secondary, and Quinn Ewers has got to make sure he finds the right receiver, goes through his progressions, gets the ball to them, and that to me it's pretty cut and dry for Texas on the offensive side of the football. On the defensive side of the football, just play the run, right? Play the run, make them beat you over top. And I think that's where Texas is probably going to struggle. They are going to get beat in a few plays over the top. And I think that what you're really looking for is for Davis Warren and Alex Orji to make mistakes. Capitalize on those mistakes. Get some fumbles, get some interceptions, whatever you got to do, wreak havoc in the backfield, bring some blitz packages, let those linebackers take a little bit of the brunt of it, I guess, of the damage. Let them kind of consume some of that damage on the second line of the defense, and just capitalize on the mistakes, because I think that this is a Michigan offense that is going to continue to make mistakes, but whether or not Texas's defense can capitalize on them, I think that's kind of the bigger question.
Yeah. Look. Let's go back to the offense for Texas, and an extension of the run game is certainly the short passing game, and that's what Texas is going to have to do in this game. You're absolutely right. They're not going to be able to line up and run straight at this Michigan defense. I don't think a ton of teams are going to be able to do that. So you're right. You got to spread them out. That's the next best thing. And that's what Texas wants to do in this offense, by the way. It's pretty obvious. That's what the system is. Spread you out. use the entire field, and that's what you're going to have to do with these really speedy wide receivers that you've got here. Spread the field out far, 52 yards wide, and work it. I mean, that's really what's going to have to happen. And to kind of piggyback off my point, that was kind of a key to victory for Michigan. This offensive line. I'm really interested to see the right side of this offensive line in particular. I like the left side. You got Kelvin Banks and Hayden Connor. I like less, but I still like. And then Jake Majors. You got to feel really good about him at center. But DJ Campbell, Cameron Williams, how do they respond? Those matchups, they're going to have some really tough matchups this weekend, right? So how do they respond to this? Because, if like I said, if Michigan can bring 3 or 4 and sit back in coverage and still get pressure on the quarterback, it's going to be a long day. It's going to be a long day. Michigan will probably win the football game. So it's going to come down to the fact that, can we get Michigan to come back down to the line of scrimmage by using the extension of the passing game, as an extension of the run game. Can we get them to beat back down towards the line of scrimmage and hit them over the top with some of these speedy wide receivers? I think it's a pretty simple strategy, but much easier said than done, because it's easy to say, well, we're just not going to run the football, but you have to. You have to, at least somewhat. You have to find a way to run the football, because, as I said, there has to be some kind of short yardage threat. Keep this defense honest, and that's kind of my key factors for Texas. The wide receivers going to have to eat. Matthew Golden, Isaiah Bond. You need to get the tight end Amari Niblack involved. Jonte Cook. All these guys. Silas Bolden, Ryan Wingo. Looked good. A lot bigger than what I even thought. Ryan Wingo looked really big. Gunnar Helm. I mean, it's an embarrassment of riches at the wide receiver room. If you're going to win this game, it's no secret that you're going to have to tap in to your talent-rich roster and put guys in positions to, put their talent on display. And, going to be easier said than done against this Michigan defense. You got anything else on this one, Mason?
Are we ready to do our prediction on it? Do you want to give an early?
Well,
prediction?
I'll give you a lean.
I mean,
yeah. We'll talk some leans here. Right now, I think I'm taking the home dog here. Taking the plus 6.5. I feel like the population is going to be betting on Texas, and I feel like this is just begging you to take Texas. This line from Vegas. So, I don't mean to switch up from being all college football analytic to Vegas. What Vegas is doing and how to beat Vegas, but those are really two different things. I totally see, why the public perception is the way that it is, but they don't build these big buildings in Vegas by, just giving you money. So I feel like they're begging you to take Texas. You're thinking, wow, I even got a half point for a touchdown here. Texas wins by 7. This is easy. I don't know. And the over-under, Mason, is really peculiar. I mean, that's an NFL over-under number right there. So you can't go under. You're going to bet under on a 44.5 whenever you've got, 6 NFL wide receivers on the field throughout the game. I can't see that. I can't see that. So just out of principle, Mason, I'm going to have to go over on this thing. And I know a lot of people were probably thinking they wanted to take the under with Michigan, but I just don't see how you do it at 44.5. That seems really, really low to me. I'm going to keep an eye on it throughout the week. I want to see if this number ticks up throughout the week. And, guys, come join us on Tuesday night. We're going to talk about this live and give you our full predictions and what we're locked in on and what we're betting on. And then Thursday, we have a betting show that it's going to talk about all our best bets for the week, which we were on fire last week. So, Mason, what's your prediction on this one? Just to kind of put a cherry on it, right now I'm feeling like Texas wins, but not by a touchdown. I think this is a field goal game as of right now. I got to kind of sleep on it, though, man. I'm not going to lie to you. This one is hard to put your finger on. Styles make fights, and I'm just not sure what kind of fight we're about to have.
Yeah, I completely agree, and I'm with you on Michigan and the points. I think that this one is one that you wait on, right? Because the public is going to be putting money towards Texas, I assume. maybe we get to a 7.5 type of number, and I'd feel really good about that for Michigan. And betting, plus 7.5. I still think that Michigan. I still at this point, and maybe Tuesday I changed my mind, maybe Thursday I changed my mind, whatever. But at this point in the week, I still feel really good about Michigan winning this game. Look, like you said, styles make fights. Michigan as a whole, as a unit, is better on the lines of scrimmage. Michigan is definitely better in the secondary. I give the edge to Texas's linebackers. I give the edge to Texas's playmakers on the perimeter and at quarterback. At this point, I do give Texas a slight edge on the offensive line because we just don't know what we're getting out of Michigan. But I think that Michigan's got better running backs. So, but to me, the lines of scrimmage, you gotta add like a 1.5 times multiplier, right? And to me, I think that the defensive line of Michigan is going to dominate this game. The secondary is going to be that second piece for Michigan, and you combine those two, and you're eliminating the passing game for Texas. And to me, that spells the that looks to me like an under would hit even at 44.5. I think I would still lean under on that number. I could see this. I could very, very easily see this being like a 20 to 13 type of game, something like that. Super low scoring. I would not be betting under. I have a tough time betting the over as well, even with it being at 44.5. So to me, I would stay away from that point total, but I really like Michigan and the points for this one.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, guys. Thank you all so much for tuning in. We've got plenty more coming. Don't go anywhere. Arkansas at Oklahoma State. We've got coming up next Colorado at Nebraska, and then we're going to talk Tennessee and NC State. Currently watching the LSU USC game there in Vegas as we're live here. No touchdowns, no points yet, Mason. The whole first quarter. Nobody saw that. Nobody.
Yeah.
Who had that on their bingo card? I want to know.
Well,
I want
not
you.
looking
I want
good
you
for
in
the
the
over.
comment section. No.
Yeah.
Looks terrible for the over. There was a fourth down stop there on that first drive. USC gets a goal line stop on fourth down. Like, when the hell do Trojans be doing that? That never happened. Right. The defense. We talked about the USC defense last week, and it seemed like they made a step in the right direction. And look, they don't have the talent, like the top end talent or whatever on defense, but the Anton Lynn, that defensive coordinator dude, he's got them in position. They're like in the right places now, and that was a big deal last year. Everybody was just kind of doing whatever the hell they wanted. Yeah, everybody was just doing what they wanted. I mean, we said it several times on the show last year that USC's defense was like a bunch of kids on the playground. It looked like my son playing touch football at his school down the road here. Just whatever, man. Just hit me with the ball. You know what I'm saying? I'll get him. There was no plan of attack. It didn't seem like, and it looks a little different today. We'll see how they hold up throughout the game, but it looks like LSU is trying to establish the run. They were able to sustain a drive there at the beginning. I haven't really noticed USC even on offense, so I guess they're kind of sputtering at the moment. Every time I look back over, it seems like LSU's back on offense. So we'll see how that USC defense holds up as the game goes on here. Again, thank you guys for tuning in. Let's. You ready, Mason? You ready to talk about this next one?
Yep, I'm ready to roll.
All right, man. Arkansas at Oklahoma State. This game is going to be played at noon, September 7th on Saturday at Boone's Pickens Stadium in Stillwater, Oklahoma. Oklahoma State opened as a 8.5, jumped to 9.5, now back down to an 8.5 point favorite in this one. The over-under is set at a crispy 59.5. Pretty high total there. It's no secret that both of these teams are looking to play a little bit better defense in 2024. But let's kind of start on the Arkansas side of things. 4-8 last year, but lost 5 games by a total of 24 points. Sam Pittman is on the hot seat headed into year 5. Everybody's talked about it. So he brings in Bobby Petrino after a failed experiment with Dan Enos. KJ Jefferson's gone. Rocket Sanders is gone. And those transfer outs make way for Taylor Green and Jaquindon Jackson coming over from Utah, the quarterback and running back, respectively. There, O line to have an O line coach as your head coach last year, Arkansas really had a tough time on the offensive line. Went out and addressed that with a couple of tackles in the transfer portal. They feel a whole lot better about what they have this year versus what they had last year. You got a good wide receiver room and something that I think is going to be able to complement Bobby Petrino's system. 139 yards per game rushing last year. That was 10th best in the SEC. So you lose Rocket Sanders to the transfer portal, but what did you really lose, right? And that's kind of how things are looking on offense. D-line is talented, but not very deep. This defense will be led by Landon Jackson, 6'7", 280-pound defensive end, and he is super talented, and I really like that guy. But the linebacker core is kind of scary, and the jury's still out in pretty much the whole defense for Arkansas this year. And then you go over to Oklahoma State, and you return a ton on offense. You return an absolute ton on offense. It was an absolute roller coaster ride for Oklahoma State fans or just college football fans in general that paid attention to Oklahoma State last year. Oklahoma State had Josh Pate coming on making videos telling everybody he's sorry for picking them last year to win, to make it to the Big 12 championship game. Well, and that was after a 35-0 or whatever it was blowout from South Alabama. Then this team goes on to go 8-2 over their final 10 games, finding their way to the Big 12 championship game where they lost against Texas, and then got a bowl win against Texas A&M to put a cherry on what was a really good 10-4 season for the Oklahoma State Cowboys. They were a top 30 offense in 2023, and they returned 90% production, and defense was really the bugaboo for this team last year, Mason. You love what they got on offense. Alan Bowman, you got the best, running back in Ollie Gordon in the country. I don't think anybody's really arguing with that at this point. 1,700-plus yard season last year, and experienced, one of the most experienced offensive lines to have ever been assembled or get on the field together for Oklahoma State. Excuse me. They're going to be really good. They're going to be really good. I love the wide receivers that you return as well. Rashad Owens had a nice day this past Saturday. Brennan Presley looking good. So it's all about the defense, man. This team's fate is in the defense's hands in 2024. It was really bad, ranked 122 in the country last season. So that kind of dresses up this situation here. We've got what I think is a really improved offense at Arkansas. I really do feel that way. I think it's going to be a whole lot better this season. But the jury is still out on both of these defenses. Oklahoma State has a good offense in their own right. I like what they've got going on there. What's your some keys to victory? We could start with Oklahoma State, Arkansas, whatever you want to do. But what are some keys to victory for each of these teams, and how are you feeling about this one?
Yeah, I mean, for Oklahoma State, had a really good week last week, I think, against San Diego State. San Diego State had I think it was a 29 win streak snapped. It was the longest in the country at the time. So a pretty good little opponent there for a non-con game, and Oklahoma State pretty much took care of business on offense. I think Alan Bowman looked good, 25 of 34, 267 yards, 3 touchdowns. Ollie Gordon had a 100-yard game, two touchdowns, another one in the air, 42 yards in the air with a touchdown. Rashad Owens played pretty well, three receptions, 81 yards, and a touchdown. So to me, the offense played well. I think giving up to 20 to San Diego State's probably not terrible. You would like for your defense to do a little bit better, but I saw a lot of the same out of Oklahoma State's defense. Trey Rucker, the safety, led the team with 15 total tackles, which is a ton. This is a guy who had 100 tackles last year, right? Not a good sign that your safety is getting the bulk of the tackles. In a sense, I mean, it's good because you got a good safety who can come up and play the run really well, but you don't want these running backs or even receivers to be getting to that third level of the defense. So don't really like that. Nick Martin had a great game, 10 tackles for him as a middle linebacker. He's probably the centerpiece of this defense here. But to me, you got to play a little bit better on defense if you're going to win this game. For Oklahoma State, that is, because I really like what I see out of Arkansas's offense. Bobby Petrino comes back to Arkansas, takes over as the offensive coordinator. Things look like they're clicking pretty good for Arkansas and the Razorbacks on offense. I really like this Taylor Green kid at quarterback. He had 229 yards and 2 touchdowns on the ground. Didn't even play the whole game. 229 yards, 2 touchdowns through the air, and did not even play the whole game. Another 88 yards and 2 touchdowns on the ground. This guy really has Heisman-like stuff. You know, when you watch his game, and I'm not saying he's going to win the Heisman ever. I'm really not saying that. But when you watch him play, he's got talent. I mean, looking at the highlights and all, it seemed like he was really in command of this offense, picked up things really quickly, and maybe Bobby Petrino in this offense that he's installed here for Arkansas has put together something that's really simplified and something that these guys can come in year one, pick up right away and play really well. Because even the backups, Malachi Singleton came in, was 8 of 10 for 120 yards, right? Third string quarterback comes in, KJ Jackson, 4 of 4 for 59 yards. So I think that the players are responding really well on offense for Arkansas to Bobby Petrino and to this offensive scheme. I think that could be an issue and something that Oklahoma State's going to have to watch out for, particularly in the passing game. I mean, they kind of did a little bit of everything. I mean, rushing, Jaquindon Jackson had eight carries for 101 yards and 2 touchdowns. Combine that with Taylor Green's 2 touchdowns and almost 100 yards on the ground. It's going to be really tough to stop this team. Now, one thing that I think Arkansas, and we don't know because Arkansas Pine Bluff playing against Arkansas, like we don't know what to expect out of this offensive line. But I do still have questions about the offensive line for Arkansas. I don't think that they were tested against Pine Bluff. That could be an area that you exploit with a veteran defense. Maybe you bring some blitz packages that these offensive linemen, would have a tough time picking up. But on the defensive side of the football, I think for Oklahoma State, you gotta find the mistakes, you gotta find the havoc plays, and capitalize on them where you can, because this is a talented group. They're going to get their points. You got to limit it, or they're going to get their yards. You need to limit the points, and limit the red zone touchdowns. Make them kick a field goal. Bend, don't break. That's kind of the recipe for success, I think, for this Oklahoma State defense. They're going to be on their heels a pretty good bit of this game, and I'm excited to see the matchup, because I think ultimately this is going to be a little bit of a shootout. Over under set at almost 60 points kind of indicates that. But who in this game is going to make a mistake first? I think that's going to kind of tell the story in this one. And Oklahoma State, with a veteran group, I think that they could be the ones who are the beneficiary of some mistakes and could catch Arkansas slipping a little bit.
Yeah, well, you talk about mistakes, and that is something that is a key to victory for either one of these teams. For me, who can get a turnover or two? Arkansas was one of the worst teams in the country last year at putting the football on the ground, and lo and behold, they did it twice last week against Arkansas Pine Bluff. So I'm wondering, and one of them was Jaquindon Jackson. I mean, that ball went absolutely flying, and the other one, I believe, was the backup quarterback. So, but my point remains, this team fumbled the ball like 20-something times last year. That was ranked 122nd in the nation. And on the other hand of that, you've got Oklahoma State, who, I really love Alan Bowman. After a 3,500-yard passing season, I mean, he just needs to look to clean up some mistakes, right? 15 touchdowns and 14 interceptions in 2023. You got to clean that up, because whenever you sit there and think about you played 14 games and you threw 14 interceptions, that's way too many, guys. I mean, at one per game, that's giving a possession away. That's going to cost your team. It's just a matter of time. And in this game, I think it will cost them, especially a game that you're talking about, basically a touchdown spread. So what team can get some turnovers? I think that's a really, really big deal. Um, I believe this game is going to be high scoring, right? I really do. We just talked about the defenses. I don't think they're great. I just don't think they're great. I think they're a work in progress, but I don't think that they're ever going to be a top. Either one of them is going to be any kind of like a top 25 defense or anything like that this season. So you've got to figure out a way to get a turnover. That's it. Really boils down to that, I think, and whichever team can win that turnover battle in this one, I think is probably going to end up winning this game. Um, for Oklahoma State, defensively, can you isolate Taylor Green? And what I mean by that is, can we isolate what he's doing? This guy looked really good in the zone read game. Him and Jaquindon Jackson are going to be trouble in the zone read game. I'm here to tell you right now. Taylor Green can read the ever living hell out of the defense, and he's going to check on that end, and if he needs to pull it and run, he does not mind doing so. He looks kind of like a baby giraffe a little bit when he runs. This guy's long and lanky, but boy, he eats up ground quick. So if he doesn't feel like he's got it, he'll hand it to Jaquindon Jackson, and I've got a lot of trust in him as well. I liked him at Utah last year, kind of stuck in a really bad situation at Utah last year, so I feel like a lot of people didn't realize what he was doing for that team, but and dealt with some injuries too. It was a pretty gritty season for him there for the Utes last year, so I expect him to have a really big year. The tackles, Mason. I mean, it was really bad last year. The tackles for Arkansas were so bad last year. And as I said, you go into the portal, you get Fernando Carmona. He comes from San Jose State, and then Keyshawn Blackstock comes over from Michigan State. And the coaching staff feels really good about these guys. This offensive line could not bounce the ball outside last year. I mean, you just couldn't. You couldn't get an edge on a defense. And it's Arkansas Pine Bluff. Totally get it, but they were able to do it. They looked good. You put Arkansas Pine Bluff in front of them last weekend. They did what they were supposed to do to them. They were able to pretty much do whatever they needed to do on offense, especially kind of second quarter on in that game. So I feel like this is a really improved Arkansas offense, and if Oklahoma State is going to win this game, they've got to make Taylor Green decide what he's going to do. And what I think you've got to do is get him in a situation where he's got to pass to win the game. You have to. You have to stop the run if you're Oklahoma State. Make Taylor Green beat you with his arm. This guy has got, among active quarterbacks, I think he's top in the nation in touchdowns, rushing touchdowns as a quarterback. I think like 29. And he's up there with some of the best that's done it over the last decade as far as those numbers go. So you gotta limit that. He can kill you with his legs. He will do it. And I don't love Oklahoma State to be able to get that done. But that goes for Arkansas too. I don't see Arkansas putting on some kind of defensive clinic either. And my last thing that I kind of noticed doing these breakdowns is, believe it or not, Oklahoma State has gone where they've wanted to go over the last 12 months. They've been to a Big 12 championship game. Yeah, they kind of got mollywopped, but they were there, and it was a lot of people had counted them out. But would you believe that Arkansas has got a more talented roster? If you want to look at 24/7, and you want to look at the recruiting classes over the last few years, Arkansas is recruiting around 25th in the country. They've got better talent than this Oklahoma State roster, guys. At least as far as every talent metric that we usually look at, like 24/7. Oklahoma State recruits around 40th to 50th in the country every season. So, and that's looking back at the last like 4 recruiting classes. Arkansas has a discernible edge as far as recruiting guys out of high school and their talent. And I feel like Arkansas has done a better job going to the transfer portal. There's only a couple of Oklahoma State transfers really even worth mentioning, right? I mean, the ones they got were good, but there wasn't many. So I would have liked to see Oklahoma State go in the transfer portal and pick up some more defensive additions, but it is what it is. They do pick up Kobe Hilton. He comes over from UTEP. He'll help out there in the secondary along with Corey Black. Those guys are going to really, really be tested. Mason, I would be remiss if I didn't mention these wide receivers for Oklahoma State as well, because I feel like they're game changers. So I'll mention them real quick, and I'll kick it over to you, and you can kind of close this out, and then we'll get our predictions. But Oklahoma State's dangerous on the outside. I mean, they return. I talked about it a little bit. Brendan Presley, he had 991 yards last year receiving, and then Rashad Owens, who looks to be in midseason form, by the way, 895 yards last year. And then you bring back Dazon Stripling, who Stribling, excuse me, not Stripling. He had 198 yards, but it was because he was injured last year. So you've got three bona fide starters, and then you go in the transfer portal and you do get a guy like Tyler Foster. He comes over from Ohio State and he looks to play tight end one. So this Oklahoma State offense is loaded. I feel like the Arkansas offense is much improved. How improved is it? That's what we're going to find out this coming up week. What do you think? What you got as far as this matchup? And give us your prediction. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I think you bring up an interesting point talking about, how Arkansas has a better roster when you look at the recruiting talent, right? This is a team that recruits in the bottom of the SEC, but that's still among the top in college football when you look at the rankings as a whole. So to me, this is a game that when you compare that to Oklahoma State and the experience that they have, right? That's their advantage is the experience. One of the most experienced teams ever to play college football, like to come back in a season. A lot of COVID seasons, coming back, and a lot of redshirt, seniors and graduate transfers and redshirt juniors. A lot of experience on the Oklahoma State's on their team as a whole, not just the offense or the defense. And so to me, this game is about, is experience more important or is talent more important, right? We're going to see a philosophy sort of battle here, and see how this kind of plays out, because I think that Arkansas is very young in a sense of, the new offense and new players coming in, transfers coming in. They're young in a sense of playing together in this system, whereas Oklahoma State kind of has a lot of the same guys, same system, Mike Gundy's system. This is what they're used to. So how do we value those two differences? It's going to be really interesting to me. I'm always a little bit leaning towards talent, right? To me, if Arkansas came out against Arkansas Pine Bluff and sputtered a little bit on offense, right? Couldn't find their footing on the first couple of drives, and looked like they were trying to figure things out still on offense. I would be I would lean a lot heavier towards Oklahoma State, but they didn't do that. They came out in the first quarter and scored 28 points. I mean, 21 points in the second quarter as well. They look pretty automatic on offense. That gives me a lot of faith in this team and what they're going to be able to do against Oklahoma State on the road, right? It's going to be a tough environment, but I like Arkansas to keep it close, if not win this game outright. Oklahoma State has been known to lay an egg early in the season. This might be the game that they end up laying an egg and maybe overlooking Arkansas just a little bit as a team in the SEC that kind of gets beat up in its own conference. But we saw, not to compare ACC to Big 12, but we saw Vanderbilt beat a Virginia Tech team that's looking to make the ACC championship, and Vanderbilt is the worst team in the SEC. So let's kind of draw a little bit of a conclusion there to say this is going to be a tough game. And I think that 8.5 points is just way too dang many points for an Arkansas team that looks to be on the rise. I really like Arkansas in the points. I might like Arkansas on the money line. We'll have to wait and see kind of what this, I need more time to look into these games, first of all, to see exactly where I'm going to put my money. But I'm also anxious to see if this line moves at all. Give me Arkansas and these points here, and to cover the points, I guess, and maybe on the money line. Also like the over to hit. I think these are two really good offenses. We're going to see it on full display. One of these teams is going to be playing from behind, and I think it could be a boat race to the end.
I'm with you 100%, Mason. Yeah, I don't think you can play Oklahoma State minus 9.5, or excuse me, minus 8.5, and be comfortable. I think the play here has got to be Arkansas plus 8.5. And by the way, folks, this isn't our betting show, which is on Thursday, by the way. But with that being said, let me ask you, I mean, and I'll ask you viewers, it's kind of a open-ended question here for all of you to answer in the comment section, but I think the general consensus amongst the public is that Arkansas sucks and Oklahoma State played in the Big 12 championship last year. That's what I think the general consensus is. Now, people here on the First and Long College Football Show, you probably don't look at it like that. Like I don't. I don't. This is a totally new Arkansas team, in my opinion. I know they return a lot of pieces, and some good, some not so good, but I think Bobby Petrino being in full control. We saw him at Texas A&M most recently before Arkansas. He didn't have full control of that offense. He will here. He has all spring and fall. I fully expect Arkansas to show up ready to play and play with their hair on fire, because if Arkansas loses this game, Mason, the seat just gets that much hotter, and it's going to start up talks about Sam Pittman and whether this team needs to go away from him. But if you win this game, you've got some serious momentum, and you might be headed for a bowl game, and I think you're going to have a pretty good shot at being able to get to a bowl game. So this game is really, really pivotal for Arkansas. It was a game that was super interesting to me. I spent way too much time on this game already, so I've already got all the notes. I'll send them over to you. You can have them because I did way too much. But for whatever reason, this game just really, really intrigues me. Guys, correct me if I'm wrong in the comment section, but I tried to look this up. The last time these two teams played was 1980. Is that right? And this was a game that was played a lot. Arkansas owns the series, but, I mean, not really worth mentioning if you're talking about 60s, 70s, and 80s. I don't really give a damn about that. So, interesting note. These teams geographically are located really close to one another, right? You would feel like this was almost like a rivalry game, right? But and I think maybe in the back in the day it used to be. You guys let me know in the comment section. I know you Arkansas fans are going to know all the history and all this stuff. I'd love to hear it because I'm sure there's a couple of old Arkansas or Oklahoma State fans still kicking around, and they can tell us about the good old days whenever that rivalry was still burning a flame there. Oklahoma State plus 8.5, over 59.5. We'll keep an eye on the lines this week and kind of go from there. All right, guys. LSU just scored a touchdown. Trying to think. I think that was Kyron Lacey just scored that touchdown.
Oh, man. I'm a little bit behind you then. Let's see.
Are you?
Yeah.
Live.
I just sped it up.
7-7.
It was
7
Lacey.
minutes
That was
left.
A heck of a catch.
Yeah. Yeah, he got both beat in too. He's practicing.
Yeah.
He's getting ready. He did a nice little dance there in the tunnel. That was
yeah. That was some good hip gyration there.
Whoops! I just saw his penis right through his pants. Thank you for that. But 7-7, 7 minutes left in the second quarter. My over is not looking good. But I'll tell you what does look good. USC looks pretty good, dude. I mean, I know LSU doesn't have a defense, but I think they have an offense for sure. And this USC defense has been playing pretty gritty so far. So they look improved.
I think the offenses are about to start loosening up a little bit.
Yeah. Well, there's not
might
much
be a little
depth
bit more
on
back and
defenses.
forth. Yeah.
There's not much depth on these defenses, and they're running all over the damn field. Neither one of them. It looks like USC's starting to hit a stride on offense as well. So, I think this one's going to open up. Should be a really good one. All right, let's jump through this stuff. Your boy here's got to go to work today. Boo! Bull crap. I got to go to work tonight, but that's all right. That's all right. Make the rest of the week easier. Let's see. We're going to do Colorado at Nebraska, right? Mason,
yep.
That's the next one. Cool. Hey, you guys let us know in the comment section what you think about these games. I appreciate you guys watching, those of you that are hanging out with us. I love doing this stuff. I love hanging out with you guys, and we've had a pretty good response on the live shows here recently. Whether you're watching it live or watching it later, I appreciate it. We're numbers are doing this, and it's because of you guys, and we're trying to get more people out here. So give us a like and shoot a comment in there. It really helps us out. It helps the YouTube algorithm, and it helps us out. Let's talk Colorado at Nebraska. Colorado at Nebraska. Another sold-out game there in Nebraska. I don't know how many in a row it is, a bajillion now. Hello there, Nebraska fans. You are probably pretty new to the First and Long College Football Show. Probably here because you watched our our deep dive there early in the season, in the spring, or excuse me, late in the off season, I guess I should say. Um, Now it's your time to be in one of the big game slots, right? We've got Colorado coming to town after what was a really really entertaining game last year. Maybe not so entertaining if you're a Nebraska fan, as of the outcome didn't go the way you wanted it to, but um, have no fear. Your opportunity for success is here at Nebraska. Nebraska is a 7-point favorite in this game, Mason. Over set at 57.5, so Vegas sees it being some scoring going back and forth here. Um, let's start with Colorado because yeah, here's how I kind of feel about Colorado at this point. It's a lot of the same as what we saw last year, Mason. It's
Hmm.
it's a elite quarterback, it's elite wide receivers, it's a below average offensive line, which results in a below average run game, right? Kind of a one trick pony it seems on offense for this offense. Now it's a hell of a trick pony, right? I like that pony. I like some of these wide receivers. They're really good, really really good. Travis Hunter is one of the best wide receivers in the country, in my opinion, and I think that's where he kind of excels at that wide receiver position. But he'll be playing both ways. Um, but the offensive line just ain't going to get it done, man. I mean, it's just not getting it done. Um, this is a perfect opportunity for Nebraska to run the football as well because the defensive line is not getting it done for Colorado either. Now, are they improved a little bit? Maybe a little. Big long run there. Sorry, watching some football while we're doing this video, but um, this is a really good opportunity for Nebraska to be able to line up, run the football, and have some success because I don't think the lines of scrimmage are going to be able to hold up for Colorado in this football game. I'm just going to be forthcoming with you right now. It seems like a lot of the same problems and not problems that you're going to be able to just snap your fingers and fix. You're not getting, Colorado's not getting a bunch of 5-star offensive linemen to come hang out. They do have a really good left tackle, but he's a freshman, right? He's a freshman, and I think he's going to be a good one, but too young, man. There's a learning curve in college football, and I think Nebraska is a certainly improved team this year. Um, Dylan Raiola is a lot of the reason for that, honestly, Mason. In my opinion, Nebraska had a really hard time at quarterback. I mean, they got a huge upgrade, even with him being a young guy. They got a huge upgrade. Um, the quarterbacks last year for Nebraska threw more interceptions than touchdowns. And
Yeah.
then your quarterback, one of your quarterbacks, Harbaugh, whatever his name is, the one that starts with an H, he was like your leading rusher last year. That
Yeah.
doesn't need to be the case. You need a running back to be your leading rusher, and that should be the case this year. And then you've got a quarterback that's I feel like got the ability to get it done. We'll see how he kind of adapts to big boy college football as the season goes on, but I still think he's an upgrade. I still think he's just an upgrade out of what you had last year, and I don't think he is going to be turning the ball over more than he's going to be scoring touchdowns. I guess is what I'm saying. So I think Nebraska fans feel a little bit better about their situation, especially after Jeff Sims last year was just an absolute turnover machine. So um, can Nebraska slow down these wide receivers of Colorado is a question I've got. And can Colorado get a turnover on defense? Those are some questions that I've got that are going to kind of go a long way in deciding this football game. What's your outlook on this thing, Mason? We've talked this weekend about Colorado in person, and I feel like we're in agreement that it's a lot of the same stuff going on for Colorado, man, just in a different year.
Yeah, I mean, my initial look at the line here, with Nebraska at -7, I think is pretty fair. I was expecting it to be more in Colorado's favor. I was hoping I could get a bet in early, with maybe Vegas leaning a little bit heavier towards Colorado, but ultimately, I think that this is a Nebraska team that looks a lot better than it did last year. Even though we've only seen 1 week against a no-name opponent in UTEP, but I really liked what I saw out of Raiola. Raiola is a guy coming out of high school that I thought, has all the tools, big arm, can run when he needs to. big body, good frame, vision, all that. He's got the total package, but I think coming out of high school left a little bit to be desired. I don't know that he was necessarily just some world beater in the highest classification in Georgia football, which is a tough place to play. I think that he did himself a service in coming over to Georgia to play, but I think there were a lot of questions about him as a starting quarterback in year one as a true freshman. Those questions are kind of answered to me at this point, right? Not saying that he's gonna go out and lead the Big Ten in passing or anything like that. I'm really, I want to pump the brakes on that a little bit, but for him to go out and execute the way he did in the first game, I thought it was really promising, and I think it shows that, like you said, this quarterback room is better than it was last year. I think they're going to be able to protect the football a good bit better than they did last year. Now, how the offensive line does throughout the season, that's a big question mark for me. I expect them to get better as the season goes on. UTEP was creating a little bit of pressure here. Dylan Raiola had a really good step up and throw while he was being hit. That for a good chunk down the field, and I thought that was pretty promising. But got to protect the young quarterback as good as possible. I don't know that Colorado can take advantage of this offensive line, but teams down the road will be able to in the Big Ten. Yeah, I guess is my point. Isaiah Nayor had a great game. I think he's kind of Dylan Raiola's go-to target at this point. Can we see a little bit more of Carter Nelson? I was impressed with him. Three catches, 21 yards, the true freshman, tight end, getting himself involved a good bit. I'd like to see him get a little bit more involved, and because he's a playmaker, absolutely. And then, but for this game in particular against Colorado, I'm looking at Nebraska's ability to run the football. Can you feed Emmett Johnson? Can we get him more than 8 carries? Ramir Johnson more than 11 carries? I think that's going to be their key to success. Colorado is better on the secondary than they are up front, which if you don't have a defensive line, you don't really have a secondary. Like let's make that point first. If you're not getting a pass rush up front and giving even a true freshman quarterback like Dylan Raiola 5-6 seconds to process things, he's going to make you pay at some point, right? So that could end up being the case here. But I know that Colorado did go out and get some dudes on the defensive line. I think that maybe the jury's still out a little bit on this Colorado defense, right? I do think that they're improved from where they were last year, but can they take really a loss? I'm going to call it a loss from last week, because to win by 5 points against North Dakota State, that's not great. It was a really close game. Probably should have lost the game. Can you take that and learn from it if you're Colorado as a defense, as an offense as well? Can you build on that, because you've got a lot of new players? To me, this week is so pivotal for Colorado. What adjustments do you make, right? Can you get the team on the same page on defense to start making stops? It looked like North Dakota State could do whatever they wanted to for most of that game. Guys were open left and right. If they go out and play the same way, Nebraska is going to blow right on past that 7-point spread. I mean, Nebraska will be able to take advantage. Matt Rule will be able to take advantage. I think that Nebraska has the coaching advantage and the personnel advantage in this football game. So if Colorado wants to leave holes like that open, it's going to be a long day for them. Really like what I saw out of Shedeur Sanders. He proved that he's one of the best quarterbacks in the country. Once again, he's not getting much blocking up front, right? He's having to kind of do some things on his own, scramble a little bit and whatnot. But he's a really special talent. So don't let him beat you, right? If you're Nebraska, and also on the perimeters, I think that Colorado has a clear advantage on the edge against this secondary for Nebraska. Limit the explosive plays. They're not going to run the football very much. You know that. You can rush 4, especially with this Nebraska defensive front. You can rush 4 and kind of sit back with your other 7. That's going to be an interesting dynamic there to see how Nebraska plays this defense, or how they play defense against this offense. And if they're able to get pressure up front, sending 4, maybe an occasional 5, That to me is going to be the difference in this ball game as a whole. I mean, one way or another, how this defensive front for Nebraska faces a weak offensive line for Colorado, puts pressure on Shador Sanders and limits the big plays, because Jimmy Horn and Travis Hunter on the edge, LaChauncey Wester, Will Shepherd. I mean, they're four deep on the edge, and I think that you've got to find other ways to limit the production there, other than just saying our secondary is gonna play against these wide receivers and stop them and lock them down. That's not going to happen. So you're going to have to bring the blitz, bring the pressure, maybe get a few turnovers on defense, and that's a recipe for success for this game. I'll let you give your spiel. I'm going to listen to what you have to say about this, and then I'll give you my pick once you're done.
I don't have too much more to say. I mean, Nebraska's got to run the football here. I think your best chance at limiting a Colorado offense that is high flying and it's got really good, it's got the really good passing game. Your best defense is your offense. You got to run the football, run the clock. That's what you got to do. Nebraska, if I'm not saying I think Nebraska's going to do this anyway, but scoring quick doesn't help you a lot. I feel like you need to sustain drives in this game. You've got to have success on first and second down in the run game and keep yourself out of third and long. And I think Nebraska's going to be just fine here. If you get yourself in obvious passing situations, is where I think Nebraska starts to kind of have some issues, because you know uh, Colorado's not going to be able to expose this offensive line. We kind of talked about that. I think the offensive line is good enough to where they don't have to really worry about Colorado's defensive line. But um, if you are in third and 9 or longer, it's obvious what you're trying to do. And I like Jamal Banks, I like Isaiah Nayor, but this is a complementary style offense. You've got to stick to the run game. You're going to have success. Johnson and Dowdle are going to have really good days. So I'm looking forward to seeing Nebraska being able to run the football. And it's very simple for Colorado, Mason. They got to get turnovers. That's how they won this game last year. If Colorado wants to win this football game, they're going to have to make Nebraska turn the ball over and make Nebraska have amnesia, right? And say, oh my gosh, we're doing this again. I feel like is this a bad dream? Like you got to repeat what happened last year to have that same type of success. I think if you're Colorado, so I don't know that I actually bet on this one this week. We'll have to see how the week goes on and how I kind of feel about it. But as of right now, I mean, I'm not picking Colorado plus the points here. I'm taking Nebraska to cover -7. If I'm more interested in the over under on this one, and I feel like the over is going to hit. The one way that I see Nebraska could counter all this and kind of throw all this in the blender, everything I just said, is if they sack the quarterback. I feel like that's like the one key thing that you know, and it's very possible, dude. With this offensive line, Nebraska gets on one. I would say that there's less questions in the defense than there is on the offense for Nebraska at this point. You've got more returning starters anyway. You know what can you get after the quarterback? This was the
Yeah.
most sacked quarterback in all of the country last year, in Shador Sanders. Can you get 3 sacks on him? If you can get 3 sacks, 4 sacks it's very possible that happened. The Colorado gave that many up many times last year. That's, I think, an X factor. And if Nebraska is going to cover the spread and exceed the spread, I think that's part of their game as well. So that's kind of where I stand on this one.
Yeah, I'm 100% in agreement. That's the matchup to watch. Like I said, if Nebraska can get to that probably 4 sack number, I think that they're going to win and cover. And Yeah, I think if I had to lean, I would go towards Nebraska winning and covering. But I do think this is going to be a competitive match. And I really feel like we're going to know a lot about each of these teams from this matchup. Moving forward, we're early on. We're getting a good matchup. I think that these are two teams that I think as college football fans, we're super intrigued in understanding kind of what the Colorado experiment is going to look like with Sanders, with Deion Sanders, and then Nebraska. Can they kind of get back to a blue blood in college football under Matt Rule? Seems like he's got a lot of momentum. which way are these teams going to go, right? That's kind of where we're at. Their season's still in front of them, win or lose, but I think as a measuring stick, this game is one of the best that we've got this week, for both of these programs. I think we're going to learn a lot from each of these programs in this game. But give me Nebraska and the points, and give me I'm going to say give me the over here as well. I think it could be a shootout.
I could easily see this one being 35-31 or something like that, Mason. I really
Yeah.
could. I don't think this is going to be some kind of defensive showing. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching. Sitting here watching the LSU and USC game as we kind of go here, and 10-7 right now, USC. So, been an entertaining game. It looks like offenses are kind of doing their thing, but then getting kind of bogged down. The defenses are bowing up. I'm really, really surprised. It looks like LSU's done a pretty good job running the football when they've needed to, and I've even seen USC with some inside handoffs for a first down today. So maybe these offenses are a little, more than just a one-trick pony here. Really entertaining game. Mason Taylor about killed a cornerback earlier. I mean, he just about killed that dude. Good Lord. The dude was in pursuit trying to catch him on the sideline, and Mason Taylor just absolutely walloped his ass. Woo! You were in the middle of talking, and I was like a car wreck happened next to me. My God. All right, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. We got one more game that we're going to talk about today. We got Tennessee and NC State, so we'll get into that in just a second. Let me get all my notes adjusted. I'd love to hear what you guys think about the games this coming up weekend. You don't have like the huge. I mean, you got the Texas Michigan. That's a ranked matchup, but I like how we got a couple of games that it's like, all right, well, these are not national championship contenders, but they're really damn good football. Matchups with the Colorado, Nebraska, the Arkansas, and Oklahoma State, regional matchups, right? Ex rivalry games back in the day. These are some of my favorite games to get into. I hope you guys will get in the comment section and let us know what you're thinking about them as well. Would love to hear it. Mason, you ready to go, buddy?
Give me 1 second. Let me pull up
All right.
box score from the NC State game. All right, I'm ready.
Yes. NC State fans are pretty upset. Let's talk about it. Tennessee versus NC State is going to be taking place there in Charlotte, North Carolina, neutral site game. Tennessee is favored by 7.5 points in this game. So 7 and a hook. Wow. Over under set at 59.5. Another high number in these games this weekend. Take away Texas and Michigan. All the rest of these numbers are really, really, really high here. And this one is no exception. Tennessee comes off what I would say would be a rebuilding year last year with Joe Milton coming in and kind of being your stopgap at quarterback. It's a new era. Nico is the man, but with the keys to the offense. I really like this Tennessee offense in 2024 and the product of this team. Really good run game, I feel like. We saw tons of options last week as Tennessee breaks in their season with a just massive onslaught, offensive onslaught, and a good defensive showing as well. But tons of running backs got carries. The wide receivers look good. Offensive line is something that we'll kind of keep an eye on. We'll talk about that here a little more in just a second, I guess. But and then you've got NC State. Everybody's happy at Tennessee. Now you got NC State. There was some pretty upset fans last week.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Western Carolina comes into town. NC State, lots of people are talking about them. We were one of them, guys. We've been talking about them. We've been looking forward to this Tennessee-NC State matchup because of it. We felt like NC State was one of the favorites to win the ACC, right? We felt like this was a team that had a pretty good shot at going to Charlotte and competing for the ACC championship. I still do feel that way. I'm not bailing on NC State. But, boy, some of the fans sure did at the game the other night. It was time for the fourth quarter light show, and lots of people just said, you know what? How about you take the lead back, and then we'll worry about some flashlights on our cell phones. It was kind of kind of a tough feeling in the stadium, right? I've been to a Georgia game like that, guys. It doesn't make you feel good whenever you're sitting in the stands. I can't imagine what it makes you feel like when you're out there on the field. I really can't. It was not a good look. Western Carolina was leading going into the fourth quarter. Not a good look. Not a good football team. Not even an FBS team is Western Carolina. They are an FCS team. So this would have been one of the worst losses in NC State history, if not the worst loss in NC State history. So NC State figures out a way. Jordan Waters, he gets it going late, ends up having a decent day, but it takes him a long time to get going. Takes that offensive line a long time to clear out a spot for him. NC State's depth won them this football game last weekend. Western Carolina didn't have answers at depth. As the game went on, especially in that fourth quarter, I can't remember how many points NC State scored in that fourth quarter. It was a pretty good bit to come back and win that thing and make it kind of look like on paper it wasn't as close as what it really was. One thing that really stuck out to me as well, Mason, Western Carolina threw for over 240 yards in this game. Not good. That's not good when you're about to play Tennessee, brother. So let's talk more about this one. I really like the Tennessee defense a lot more than I like the Western Carolina defense. So NC State better figure something out quick. What's your thoughts on this game?
I mean, my initial thoughts are that Tennessee's about to run away with this one, right?
I hate that.
I did have to kind of bail on NC State, and I hate it. I saw some things that I don't know if they're going to be able to come back from. It was pretty. This was the game that I feel most confident in overreacting to is the NC State game, right? If that makes sense. Week 1, we don't know a ton about these teams, but there were some glaring issues from NC State, and in particular on the offensive line. I think that was the biggest concern for me after this game is that Western Carolina was able to get towards or to get behind the line of scrimmage and to put pressure on Grayson McCall way too often. It was that was his issue, is the fact that he had players in his face for most of the game. He didn't play well either. I mean, even when he wasn't getting pressured, he didn't have a great game. But I've kind of come off of NC State a pretty good bit after that win that they had, and I hope that I'm wrong. I hope that they're able to keep this a close game, but ultimately, I think that there was more bad than good. And then on the flip side, Tennessee is roaring. I mean, it looked like they are the team that we thought that they were, and a team that can compete in the SEC this year, that can be a playoff team this year under Nico in his first year starting. I think that they're on a short list of teams that could win the SEC, and teams that can go to the playoffs. Looking at this matchup though, I'm looking at Nico Iamaleava. Played really well, 314 yards, 3 touchdowns. He was 22 of 28. Didn't play the whole game. Scored a bunch of points early. Got to sit, rest up and all that. Looked great. Deontay Thornton, 3 catches, 105 yards, 2 touchdowns. Looked great. Brew McCoy, healthy, finally. Got 6 receptions. Seems to be the go-to guy again. Chris Brazell got in there. Squirrel White got a few carries there, or a few catches there. Could see him get a little bit, a few more possessions, I guess. Dylan Sampson was absolutely phenomenal. 124 yards, 3 touchdowns. Looks like your bell cow. And then, the guys behind him played pretty well too. I mean, at the running back position. So I think that we got a lot more answers out of Tennessee. This offense in particular, we don't know what the defense is going to do. UTC has no offense to exploit anything that Tennessee wanted to do or couldn't do or whatever on defense. So I don't know. I think the jury's still out on the defense. Looked like they were flying around, having a good time. Played pretty well. We'll have to wait and see. This game should tell us a bit more about the Tennessee defense, I think. But ultimately, I'm looking at NC State, and I'm wondering how are they going to fare against the Tennessee pass rush if they if they struggled with Western Carolina up front. That's going to be the game to me. Tennessee is going to bring some pressure. They may not have to bring more than 4 against this offensive line, and that is a huge concern for me. Y'all, Tennessee has 3 sets of defensive linemen that they can roll in and roll out with little to no drop off, and that is the biggest difference in this team from last year to this year. They got depth at defensive line, right? That's going to help their secondary play out tremendously. We talked all last year about how bad the secondary was, or how it was their weakest link. They weren't terrible. It was just their weakest link. Well, a lot of that was due to the defensive line up front, who played the run really well last year for Tennessee, but probably struggled a little bit in some areas to get to the passer. And now I look at the fact that they have 3 sets of defensive linemen that they can rotate in and out. These guys are going to be fresh, right, for the entire game. With the style of offense that Tennessee plays, that is huge. And I think that that's why we are so high on Tennessee this year. They're going to be able to get to the quarterback. They're going to be able to do it for the entirety of the game. I think we're going to see a lot of that in this game, and I think it's going to be the deciding factor for North Carolina State in this, and in particular with their offense. I think their offense is going to struggle again. It's unfortunate for Grayson McCall, but I don't know that this is the game that he's going to have a coming out party. We may have to wait until they get into the ACC play until they start turning some things around. Not trying to be all doom and gloom for NC State fans, but I think this is a really tough matchup. To me, Tennessee's a top 10 team in the country, and I think they're going to go out there and prove it this week against NC State in Charlotte. And they're going to kind of put themselves and Nico Iamaleava on the map. I think you're going to start hearing a lot more Nico buzz for Heisman after this game, and I think Tennessee's going to win pretty big.
Well, let's talk about NC State for just a second. What do they got to do to win this football game? Well, Tennessee's weakness on defense is their secondary. I don't think there's any doubt about that. Now, we're going to see how much of a weakness it is. I'm not – the jury's still out. I haven't fully figured it out yet. I mean, you bring in some guys, Jacoby Thomas, Jalen McMurray, Jermon McCoy. How do these guys, how do they translate to an SEC or in this case, I know this is an SEC game, but how do they translate to fitting in this scheme at Tennessee? We've talked about the front seven of Tennessee all offseason. James Pierce is about to eat. James Pierce is probably about to eat, and he did last year, and I expect him to do so. But NC State, if they want to win this football game, they're going to have to use some of these playmakers they've got out on the edges, because you can't be a one-trick pony. I mean, Noah Rogers has got to show up. That was a guy that doesn't have a ton of experience, but was a really, really sought-after guy that transferred over from Ohio State to NC State to play wide receiver. Casey Concepcion is a complete badass, so he is somebody that's going to have to be fully accounted for by the Tennessee secondary at all times. He's the type of guy that even when he's not open, he's still open. It's still like a 50-50 ball. It's pretty crazy. He is he's long. He can catch the ball away from his body. Really, really tough to deal with, this guy. And I spoke about Jordan Waters. You can't be one-dimensional. Jordan Waters can't wait till the second half to show up in this game if you're NC State. Your offensive line is going to have to figure out a way to establish some type of wall for this guy and let him work. And then, last of all, Mason, I told you this past weekend, I've never seen Grayson McCall play as bad as what he played. And the numbers don't fully indicate it, guys. I mean, he had some numbers. It was wild, really, to watch, because the throws he missed were just at the worst possible time. Just at the worst possible time. And I don't know if he was nervous. He seemed nervous to start the game. I'm interested to see how he settles in. And he's really one of the reasons that I'm, sitting here saying that I'm going to hold out some hope for NC State. Maybe not necessarily in this game, but, long term throughout the season. You don't have to win 11 football games to go to the ACC championship. We've seen it time and time again. We have seen 3 and 4 loss teams go to the ACC championship game. It happens all the time. So NC State, I'm not giving up on them long term throughout the season. when they get into their ACC schedule, I think they're going to be fine. They got to figure out some some questions. The defense is supposed to be better than the offense at this point. There was some things that really concerned me last week. I talked about Western Carolina throwing for 240 yards on this secondary. What's Tennessee going to do then? Are they going to throw for 340? That's kind of where I'm at with this thing. So we're just going to have to kind of see. And then for Tennessee, I think it's much more simple, much more easy line of victory here. Hence them being 7.5, a touchdown and a hook favorite. But I think it's simple. Can your offensive line establish the line of scrimmage? This is probably the biggest question on this offense is the offensive line. You bring in Lance Hurd over at left tackle. That was a really, really nice pickup this offseason. You got to have Cooper Mace healthy at center. I think that is pretty much the nucleus of this offensive line. I don't have any reason to believe he's not. I'm just throwing that out there. I feel good about the right side. It's that left guard spot. I feel like you're kind of still trying to figure out who's the best guy to play at that left guard spot. And the reason I bring up the offensive line, Tennessee's got to establish the run. They're really good at it. They're going to run the football about 50 to 55% of the time. I think there's a common misconception about this offense that they throw 70% of the time or some kind of air raid, and that is just absolutely not true. That Tennessee needs to establish the run early, which I fully think they can do against this defensive front, so long as everybody's healthy on that O-line and everybody's playing up to par. If you establish the run game, it's all over. It's all downhill from there because you'll have the defense on their heels, and that's what this Tennessee offense is all about. They'll get you on your heels. They'll get a couple of things going, and then bam, 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 next thing you know, you're not even lined up. And I fully anticipate NC State is going to be they're going to be reeling in this game. The defense is going to be running to go get on the football so long as Tennessee can have success on first and second down. Guys, that's the catalyst to this Tennessee offense, first and second down. If you don't have success on first and second down, I think you can have some trouble with this Tennessee offense. But I don't foresee that happening this week. I like Tennessee. I like Tennessee to cover in this one, Mason. And
Yeah.
I'm not sure about the over under because I think there's a chance that NC State doesn't hardly score.
Yeah.
I see this game going two ways. I see Tennessee either winning by 10, and it's a, I don't know, 38-28 game, or Tennessee blows their ass out. Those are
Yeah.
the two outcomes. I just don't see NC State being able to win this game, barring some type of crazy injury or something like that. So give me Tennessee. The front seven's too much. Don't even worry about the secondary because I believe the front seven's going to be able to get after this quarterback, and it's going to make it a non-factor. I think NC State gets their yards to KC Concepcion. I think they get a few run yards here and there, but I think that Tennessee has the overwhelming edge in this one.
Yeah, I completely agree. I don't even have a ton to add to that. I think that you nailed it. Tennessee's going to overwhelm NC State in Charlotte this week. I'm going to have to do some more homework to figure out exactly how NC State can win this game because as of right now on a Tuesday night, I don't. Excuse me. As of it's Sunday night. It's not Tuesday night. Tuesday night we will be doing a full breakdown. We're
live. Gotcha.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. But yeah. So I'm gonna have to do some homework to figure out exactly how NC State can win this game because I just don't see it based on what we saw in Week 1. I expected the defense to be a lot further along than they were against Western Carolina. Look, I understand the offense sputtering a little bit, new quarterback and all that for NC State, but I expected them to hold Western Carolina to one touchdown, maybe 10 points, 13 points, something like that. And they were able to kind of move the ball, and it was pretty tough to watch for that defense that we were thinking was going to be one of the best in the ACC. Maybe they still are, but in Week 1 they certainly did not prove that. I've got Tennessee covering. I'm with you. I don't really like the over under here. I think Tennessee could put up 60 on their own, if they wanted to in this game. So I would stay away from that because I also could see this being like a 40 to to 10 type of game, and Tennessee just absolutely runs away with it. But there's no point in scoring more than 40 points if you're holding them to 10 points. So, but yeah, I think Tennessee wins this by a landslide.
I think so too. Hey, and if NC State isn't able to establish the run really early, that's when you get a blowout. That's what's going to happen because Tennessee's. You made this NC State team one dimensional, and Tennessee knows what's coming. Woo, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. We'll check it out later this week. Hey, Tennessee fans, NC State fans, join us Tuesday night live. We're going to talk about this game. Come on the show. Tell us why we're idiots. We'd love to hear it. Thank you so much for watching. And thank you, live people, for watching. We certainly do appreciate it. It's been a lot of fun already this season. Guys, we're going to have a really good time this college football season. I've enjoyed diving into these things on Sunday. This is going to be my little Sunday routine, I guess, right, for the next few months. And really excited to do it with you guys headed into the winter. We've got tons of live shows throughout the week. We didn't even know we were going to do this live today, and then Mason's like, just do it live. Every bunch of people watched yesterday, so let's just do it again. Well, guess what? You're here, and you're watching, and I really do appreciate it. If you haven't hit the subscribe button, please do it. And if you haven't hit the like button, please do that as well because we're trying to get the word out, trying to get all these fan bases to come here, hang out. So we've got differing points of views, and everybody, can chat it up in the live chat. And we got a really good start, but we got to keep going. So hit the like button and help us out. Mason, you got anything else for the people of the First and Long College Football Show community?
Nope. Just stick around to the channel. Make sure you're subscribed. We really appreciate y'all watching tonight to keep it entertaining for us, and keep watching what we got coming out. And yeah, that's all I got. Tuesday night, we'll see you guys again.
Off to work I go. Hey, we'll see you guys later this week. Thank you again so much for tuning in the First and Long College Football Show. It's been a great season so far, and we're just getting started. See you later this week.